was a benefit overall to join the city, then we would look at possibly doing it, but we haven't even looked into the details or had any discussions on it in any detail. So,
one thing is if you annex into the city, then you won't be worrying about a double charge because it would be the regular charge and everything too. My personal feeling, and that I get from other people and everything, is, I mean, I'm tickled pink with what you're doing, that you're have plans in place to start making the plant look better, cleaning it up, beautification, and everything that you talked to us about too, and everything. And I'm pleased that the odor has improved, although still not where we'd like to see it. But I also have been here the past 2 years where the plant has been an eyesore at the main entry to the city. And the odor has been something that made quality of life almost an oxymoron for people in the city due to the odor, and I think had a real negative effect on our city. And it seemed like at that point in time that Great Western or Western wasn't really willing to listen to us, and as a city we had absolutely no recourse and everything. And even when we had the public meetings and Jeff went to the meetings and everything that the county had and everything, it was not meant in a receptive, what can we do type thing. It was information gathering and everything too. So personally, as a council member, I would like to see you annexed into the city. Number one, as I said, that'll take care of the double fees, but number two, I think that once you're a part of the city, it allows us to make sure that we have some checks and balances to make sure that you are running an operation that is palatable to the citizens.
Again, I mean, we, and I appreciate that, Kevin. I think that right now where we stand, we would have to do a lot more work on that to see what that means and what impact it would have. We've got a substantial amount of money to invest in the facility, and I think that to put an additional burden on us when we're trying to correct things, that's my concern. We've got a lot in front of us in a short period of time. We have been here for over 100 years, that, I think that we have tried to come out with a strong response to make things better, and we'll continue to do that. I'm very involved in it personally myself, and I'm telling you, I have been. I've met with Jeff on a number of occasions. I think that, as you know, I mean, there's other situations that only allow us to comment on so much as well, but. We're very serious about working together and partnering with the city. We know we're right adjacent to the city. I don't think that annexing is going to stop that. I mean, you've got my commitment to work together. I think that we have listened. We're going to continue to make this site look better throughout the summer. We've got a number of plans on some painting jobs as well as some other things. There's still some additional equipment that needs to be moved to make things look better. We're redressing some of the other parts of the property so we can mow it easily. We're putting in grass and some nice trees and such and make it look better. But the substantial amount of money that it's going to take over the next several years is a huge commitment, as well as when we did upgrade the facility, that was, we put in about $40 million into the facility, which brought a lot of work to town and a lot of contractors and supports the employees, which, during campaign, we have almost 200 employees at that site that spend their money in this town. And that are related to that facility. So
yeah, but after you did, and again, not just playing devil's advocate, I guess a bit, but after we had after you put all that money into it. And I remember you telling us your frustration that, and which engineers were pointing at each other with.
Yeah.
But the bottom line was that's when the odor problem became so problematic.
Yeah.
And you can talk about economic benefit that you brought in, but something we can't measure is potential loss. I mean, I had people who have been lifetime residents of Fort Morgan that moved during that time because they said, we just can't put up with this. And so, any other primary employer that was looking for a place to start, I think would have passed right away. So, I mean, you can't downplay that too much as far as where we've been.
No, and I understand that.
Where we're
Yeah.
headed, though.
Yeah.
I really do, and your effort with that, I do applaud that.
And with that, I think that's part of our involvement with them is to try and continue to make it better if we can. Obviously, they have to make a decision on what they're going to do to meet state requirements and everything else. And I guess what we're looking at is do we. So there's two issues here. Obviously, they have to make a decision on what they're going to pay coming in. We're doing a rate study and looking at this to make sure that we're being fair with everybody in the system for what we charge for BOD and what we charge for other things. But the real question is, do we change our policy or make an exception to the policy, which I'm pretty sure what the legal position would be on that, and he doesn't have to give a legal opinion in an open session, but would we provide them with the same rate that we charge in-town citizens or not? Or were we going to ask that they annex? And if the answer is they need to annex to get that price, I think they need to know that tonight. And if they are, is there some sort of compromise in between that where we can say, okay, if you don't annex in year one, by the time you get it up and running, we have an agreement that they'll annex in 5 years. Let's say they pay full price, and then at the end of that year, after 5 years, we figure out if there's a refund of sorts that goes back to paying anything, or do we just treat them the way they are? So I guess the first question on kind of a consensus of where is council on the annexation requirement to get the rate that everybody else.
Jeff, I would like to retouch on that.
Sure.
Joining at the in-city rate still gives a substantial amount of money to the city in that facility. And, if we make it double the rate and we make we have to make a choice, like Jeff said. I mean, we have to make a choice of what direction that we go. And there's several options that are viable. And I would rather work together than be put in a position and that we put in more equipment so where we don't go to the city at all. I'd rather work together where we utilize the assets at the city and it's a benefit to the city. If it becomes, if the burden becomes so high, then that pushes you towards the other options. It's this basic how you judge one option against the other. And, I think that, heard of some of the other options that we have, but I mean, there's several options, and that's to treat our water all the way through ourselves. That's another option too. There's several options. I mean, there's that option. There's, several options that are being considered. So I'd really like you to think about how do we work together where it benefits the city. They get additional revenue. It's complementary to the facility because I think our BOD would help the plant, from what I understand. If that's not the case, then we can put in additional equipment to take care of that. But
well, you realize you would have an industrial discharge permit and limitation
yes,
to the plant.
Yeah,
it's not
that's
all. A lot of BOD is a good thing.
No, it's no. We know we've talked through that and understand what that limit is and everything. And
so I know in our last discussion that we did have the annexation portion came up, and we did ask you about that along with your counterparts, and you were going to check into that. And it's
well,
seems that have done nothing.
No, we have.
We
We started checking. We started checking into some of the different provisions of what it would mean to be annexed. And, our initial investigations on that, we don't have all the answers, but we have started checking into that. And I think that we'll weigh that along with the versus the charges. I think that I don't know what the exact answer is going to be, Ron, but I mean, I know that it would be a pretty heavy burden based on some of the things that we do based on what is charged. We have a lot of activity. We buy a lot of goods and services. We've got a lot of construction ahead of us. All those things are impacted by being in the city.
So what about the proposal that you heard brought up, make a decision in the committal, or I won't even say committal, the ball would be in your court. You can pay the double rate up until a point in time you decide to annex into the community. You annex into the community, your double rate goes towards your plant investment fee or part of your cost to come in to the city treatment facility. I mean,
Well, I guess I would I'd like to be able to put pen to paper or pencil to paper on that and work through that. It's something I haven't heard before tonight, Ron. So, an idea like that. I mean, we want to be fair in this,
Yeah,
and we
wanna
want to
work
make
with
sure
you.
that we continue to improve. And we just being very open about it. And but we do have to compare the different options. I'm trying to do whatever I can to really make this option work. And
So has the state stated that they will issue you a discharge permit to treat your own waste and discharge it?
we're still in confidential settlement agreement negotiations, so I can't talk on that comment. But I think that my perception, not anything, my perception is that the state seeing that working together with the city is a very good thing. That's my perception. So I think that I know that the city's permit needs to be renewed as well. And
It's been for years.
yeah, I know they left you guys in limbo, but I think they working together with us. I think they see as especially with some standards that are coming down in the future. They actually, our water. Working together with your water would probably be a good option. So I think there's some benefits from that too. Our waste is not the same as the waste that you're treating today, and I think they go well together. And my perception is that the state, the state would think that working together with the city would be a good thing. Yeah. I don't know, Jeff. I don't know what if you
Well,
have
I
any
think
comments on
it's
that.
good if we work together, obviously, because, when you look at what it's going to take Western Sugar to build their own facility and discharge directly to the river, you're going to have to hire people. It'll be similar to what Leprino and Cargill have to do at this point, where they have their own system if you did it by yourself. There's some economies of scale that come along with working with the city. Obviously, we help solve the problem, but we have the employees, we maintain the talent, we maintain all the problems once it comes off the pretreatment part of the plant. So I think it's a good thing to work together, but I also want to be really clear that I think from a business perspective and decision for the city, it's really hard for me to recommend that we allow a half rate for someone outside the city because of the issues that we'd have on the legal side of then we've got to change everybody else. I'm always trying to find the happy medium, the middle ground, and that's kind of what Brent and I talked about, and figuring out, because if council takes the position that you have to annex in to get that half rate, obviously that puts you in a position where you run the numbers and does it work or doesn't it? And that's why I came up with the other possibility of saying, well, maybe the numbers don't work right now, but over time they do. And so I don't know if that's a possibility.
What about, since this is the first I've heard of this kind of option, that at least maybe not take a vote tonight and let me work with Jeff and get some more details and then come back to you. And
Okay, and with that, I guess I would be curious to know what our we have a policy that's established on our wastewater enterprise fund, and the water for anybody outside of city limits pay is double. And we have those users out there. What's the ramifications of that? Do we have to change our entire policy? Do we,
It would require at least an ordinance change, because that's in our code, that requirement.
If we did that, how much, I'd be interested to know if we made a change like this, and then we had to change for everybody else, ultimately, how much money would we be losing? What would be the economic impact on the city?
And the future and to me also, one of the things I look at is, we have our current, and I'm absolutely in favor of doing whatever we can do to try to work together. It's what you do as a community. But we have to look beyond that to future economic impact. And what does that mean? Because, we have lots of properties. We could bring in, other industrial customers that we would need to be doing something similar. And I guess I'm hesitant to leap and hope that, in the long term, this isn't going to affect us as a
well,
long-term situation.
when this was actually put in, and I'm speaking from experience, it was put in as an annexation incentive. I mean, we can't do it because we're regulated by PUC on the gas and electric, but our other 2 or 3 enterprise funds are different. So I guess if you want to work with Jeff on the other option, and we want to consider the potential of that at a future date, I'm
Well, and I also want to be able to give Western Sugar also some finality as well. And so here's kind of my thoughts. Obviously, this idea that we have needs to be vetted and determine what those costs are going to be. How much do we, if we change our policy and say everybody gets the same rate, whether you're in the city or out of the city, we have to look at what that's going to cost. One of the issues you have to think about when you do that is that the people who live in the county or situated in the county don't pay city property tax, which is the lowest property tax in the county. I like to point that out. We're a lot less than Brush or Log Lane Village, just next door to you. It's really a steal of a deal. The other thing, when you look at some of the benefits of coming into the city, as you wanted to know that, is we have a ladder truck. The rural district does not. Not that we wouldn't loan it out, but they're not cheap, and you have some tall buildings. Anyways, there are some benefits to coming into the city, and I want to be able to say, if Jason does the research and realizes that, we can't do that, where we give an incentive over a period of time, and I guess, first of all, we need to make sure that that's going to be legal. If it's not legal, then it's either you come in or you don't, and I don't think council has much of an option with that. And then or I guess it's not that council doesn't have an option, it's Western Sugar. All of us don't have an option for that. But the other aspect is, if it is legal, it does make sense. I guess we're going to have to figure out what those numbers are going to look like and what that looks like to you. But I guess, do you get the sense, Rodney, from your board or from the things that you've looked at, that there's just absolutely no way that there would be any annexation? Because I'd hate to go down the rabbit hole of, let's see what the financial benefits or disadvantages are, if there's some other reason why you don't want to annex in. Because if it's purely economical, I think it makes a lot of sense to go down this road. If there's other issues that are not economical, or that are going to cause, that are just a no, I'm not sure if that makes sense to go down the rabbit hole. But if it's economic,
No, I
definitely want to
I
look
don't
at
think
it.
that's the case. I think we got to look at the economics of it. We've got to look at obviously, we are looking at investing a lot of money, and any additional burden on it is tough. So we're looking at that. I think obviously we're adjacent to the city, so whether we're annexed or not, and maybe we haven't always listened as well as we should, but we are now, and that's the way we're going to continue to operate as we go forward. And so I would like to be able to, knowing that this is kind of the first discussion with your kind of idea, Jeff, then I'd like a little bit more time to work through that and come back to you and try to come up with something that makes sense for both of us. And
I would say look at our rates, the rate structure that we have, them being an industrial. I know we've got a rate for Log Lane Village that's set up for that. So we can look at something along that lines as opposed to that, and I'm just throwing that out as an option for you to look at in your negotiations. Or
We're looking at that right now and actually having a full analysis done on whether or not, what makes sense with that rate. Because I know that's the big ticket price is the BOD cost for the BOD per pound. And we have that already set in the rate, but we're re-examining that to see where that's at for everybody, whether you're in city or out of city limits. So, I think we can look into this a little bit further. And so we do. Ultimately, we want to be a help to Western Sugar because our help to them is going to be helpful to our citizens with some of the issues that we're dealing with and don't have any control. However, that being said, obviously, what a lot of people look at the city of Fort Morgan, they say you're just government and you're tax-based. But what we're talking about here is a business that's run by the city. It's a utility that we operate at cost, and we want to make sure that we're not doing something that ends up costing the other ratepayers more money. And so that's kind of the balancing act.
And on that,
do.
Ron, and like
Yeah.
I said before, we're not
Yeah.
asking for that. Whatever the rate needs to be so we pay our fair share of
I'm just saying
processing.
if they look at that rate structure as opposed to
Yeah.
that, that would be an option.
We could look at that as a potential option, yeah.
So.
And then the other piece of the analysis, of course, is if you're annexed in, then your water rate goes to the in-city rate as well, as whereas now you're paying double on the water side of things.
Yeah. And now we don't take it to you, but yeah, if we did that, you're right. It'd be double, yeah.
Mr. Perry, what do you see as your vision for this plant in 15 years?
I think that obviously the start is over the next couple years with this major project that we're going to be undertaking. I think that as part of that, there's going to be some other significant improvements that I'll be able to discuss soon once we get the settlement agreement done with the state of Colorado. So I look forward to that, actually, because there's going to be a lot of investments that I think are going to benefit the community. And, that's something that we look forward to. I think long-term, as Jeff said it before, the ag community, they do come to town, even though not all of them live in Fort Morgan, and they spend a lot of money here and help support the community. And, overall, they haven't been doing very well, and there are some that actually are losing their farms just because the prices have been so low for so long. Sugar beets historically were a crop that it's a specialty crop. It takes special harvesting equipment that helps support the growers when there was the other crop prices did not. And we've had low sugar prices over the last couple of years. We had our challenges at the facility, as Kevin talked about, that didn't help them. But I think that long term, it's something that it has a lot of good paying jobs. I mean, we increased our wages substantially over the last couple of years, even for seasonal employees. We're some of the highest paid jobs in this town, and we continue to want to do that. We added 12 very good paying jobs with process engineers. We added 8 process engineers at the facility. It would have been nice to have them a couple years sooner, honestly. I think we would have ran better, but we are investing there. We've added process manager. All those positions, paint a bright future, and we make these other changes. We look forward to the community meeting, once we get through the settlement agreement, which is coming very close to getting done. We've been in that for a long time. I think, we see a bright future that I think that everybody eventually in Fort Morgan and the city can be proud of. And, that's what I see as a future. And, I also see us being more of a partner and having very good open dialogue and communication and working together. I think, in the last couple of years working with Jeff, it seems like we've made a lot of progress there. I mean, we're one of the biggest buyers of the electricity. We were a large buyer of water. We worked with the city to reduce that, and we have reduced it substantially. Going forward, that probably will go down too. But for a period of time, we gave the water department a very good shot in the arm there last year. So, but I think just want a partnership, working together and being more open about things. Obviously, there's third parties that, for various reasons, that have, started a suit against us. But we don't view that as Fort Morgan. Most of the people, we feel like that hopefully we can work together, and we want to do things in the right way and continuously improving the plant. I think it's, we've made some steps in that direction, and we're going to invest a lot more money here over the next few years to get it there.
You talk about the upgrades to the facade of the front of your facility. If you could, what are your long-term plans, or the backside, the interstate side of the facility? What's your plans or long-term prospects for that?
Well, I think, the north side of the interstate, there will be substantial improvements over there. I can't get into a lot of details, Ron, but there'll be substantial improvements there. The backside of the facility, now that we're through campaign, what equipment and how it's organized, we've removed a lot. We're going to remove the balance of that where you can see it from the interstate and move it over in a more organized way. We're getting rid of some additional equipment over there. There's some buildings that we're going to paint this summer. And there's one building that we're going to replace the roof on that you can see right from the interstate. And we made a lot of, the facility needed a lot of roofs. During the project, we replaced a lot of roofs. There was a lot of things that you don't see from the street that we did before. But we're trying to put ourselves in the cars of the people that are driving by or come off the interstate, and then that drive by the front of our plant. And that's the context that we're putting it into, to make sure that we address the issues, and then change the culture where we don't put that stuff back out there. There's there's a bulldozer that we've got a person that's going to come and take it away. You see it right off the interstate that hasn't ran for a long time. It seems like you just snap your fingers and that stuff's gone, but we've been trying to get this guy to come and get it for 2 months now, and if he doesn't come and get it, we'll have to find a different person. But we are paying more, and we do have a lot of good paying jobs, and we want those people to live here in Fort Morgan. And, I think from that perspective, that's another thing we can do for the future, is continue to encourage them to live in the city of Fort Morgan. And most of our people want to live here, but it is difficult to find housing. It is.
Well, since I've been on council, probably the two biggest topics that I've had more conversations with people about than anything else has been the housing and Western Sugar.
Yeah.
And Western Sugar, much more than the housing. It has been a major concern for a lot of people. And I believe that tapping into using our wastewater facilities for your wastewater is the best option as far as solving many of the concerns that many of our residents have. I would love for you to tap into our system, but I believe that council is feels like you should annex in with the city in order to get that. What I don't understand and what I would like at some point along the line is some kind of real explanation as to why the resistance. I believe that most of us are, or all of us, are very agricultural friendly. We have several other agribusinesses inside city limits. We love agriculture. We want the businesses to be successful and to be fruitful. We're not out to harm anyone. And so as we move forward, I hope that you would really consider that. I hope this other option pans out and works in everyone's favor. But I think it's important that we make it very clear. We're very agricultural friendly, and annexing into the city is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
And I think that there would be a lot of benefit to you, cutting your wastewater costs in half being a big one, so.
Okay, with that, I think you've got some direction, Jeff,
Yep.
or what you got.
Yeah, I think what we'll do is-
some of those, and
We'll see if there's something that can work. And I think, I understand where council's at, and I think understood before, but I also wanted to see if there's any kind of wiggle worm or wiggle room, a wiggle worm with some wiggle room, I don't know, to try and see if there's something we can't do to make this work, because I really believe everybody on the council wants to help the situation, and they want to make it better, but obviously there's some limitations to that, and I think the history makes it a little bit difficult, and we're working through that on what we can do, but we'll sit down and see what the economics make sense and answer some of those questions of what impact is this going to be. We'll look at that rate analysis in the current rate study and see what's going to happen with that. But as a citizen and resident of Fort Morgan that lives just a couple of blocks away, the sooner the better, because I know no matter what we do, there are going to be days until we get it figured out where, it's just not fun.
And I think that's something for the viewing public to know, is even if we sign something today,
Sure.
this is not gonna, it's not like a miracle happens and tomorrow
Right.
everything is, this is an iterative process that's going to take a little while for Western Sugar, to get there. So there's, I guess we're asking for a little bit more patience as we proceed forward through, and as you guys proceed forward with that. But it's not going to be a magic pill, that suddenly, we turn it on, we start taking the water, and ta-da.
No, there's a substantial investment
Right.
that we have to make prior to coming to the city. That's right.
And I think that's just important for people to understand, that it's not a, a snap of the fingers and, suddenly everything is better. So I don't want people to think that that's going to be the case.
so I think staff and you guys have got some
Yep.
room to work and negotiate with. So I would imagine we'll be talking again shortly.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd like to move it along very quickly, and we'll do our part of it, to do the homework, hard homework, and try to work something out, just based on the timeline we are to make a choice. So we'd like to work on it pretty quickly.
Well, I'd like to thank you for your time and your diligence on this issue, as well as staff, so.
Great. Well, thank you.
We'll work
Thank you.
forward and get it handled.
Sounds great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Did we need to have him sign in?
Oh, yeah.
No? Okay.
Just kidding.
I'll give you his card.
I just thought we had to have everybody sign.
That wasn't a public
Oh,
comment.
okay.
Final word and everything like that, I bet if you went and talked to most of our constituents, they would say that we need to annex or have them annex into the city so that in the future, we do not end up with a situation, and like I said, right now, they're working well with us, and I'm very pleased about that. But you remember during the crisis, when everybody was having a problem, and when they came to you, your answer was, we can't do anything because they're in the county. And I think that if we let that slip through and there happened to be future problems and everything like that, that we would not have been serving our constituents well.
Well said.
Okay. Next is an update on the charter change proposal and scheduling a community public meeting on the issue. Mr. Wells.
Thank you. I get all the fun ones tonight. So we had at the last meeting some impromptu, I guess, direction from council on how to manage or deal with some requests from citizens on what to do with addressing some issues that are perceived in the police department. And I think it's really important that we follow up, as council said, in doing the things that we need to do to engage the public and find out what makes the most sense for the city. We have taken that direction from council, and I'd like, in just a second, I'll have John talk and type, and talk a little bit about what we've done with Polco in the last 2 weeks, as we told you we would. And then we have come up with the date of May 28th as a public forum meeting. 29th, sorry, 28th, everybody will be on vacation, I hope.
Isn't that a holiday?
What a great day to do it, right? Memorial Day. So what we're looking at as far as the structure of this meeting is we'd probably have it here in council chambers so that we could televise it out, record it, and then have it to play again for people that weren't able to make it to the meeting, and we could put it out on our TV stations. What we would do is it would be an educational opportunity as well. I'd like to take some time to kind of explain the process that we've been through and gone through with the police department, why certain decisions were made that I think are in question now. And I think it's important that we're completely transparent and open with the public on where things are at and where they're going. I'd like to give the chief a little bit of time to kind of talk about what his assessment of the department is when he came in, some of the things that he's been doing to try and work on some of these issues, and some of the things that are within and not within our control. And then we may have somebody from CIRSA come and talk about the potential liability issues that go along with moving this from council or from the manager to the council, so that the council and the public are aware of the risks associated with the decisions that they make. Ultimately, I think we have to listen, as council pointed out, to the citizens and what they want and what makes sense, but we also have, I think, an obligation to be open, transparent, and educate them on where things are at, because I really do believe that there is some information out there that's not completely correct. And I know in my conversations with the police department, they have their own take on this, and I think staff has their own perspective on what direction they would like to see this go. But that being said, we also need to listen to to the constituents and to the citizens and decide what we are going to do. So kind of what I think we would propose to council tonight is to set a public meeting for the 28th. We'll continue to get feedback on Polco and provide that information to council, maybe some follow-up questions. Isn't Polco just a great thing to say? It's just fun to say, Polco. Anyways, the other thing that I think we need to look at, and I obviously don't supervise Jason, work very well with him, is I think, I think that this group really wants to see something happen. They don't want to feel like they're getting lip service from the council. Ultimately, council may decide they don't want to put it on the ballot, but I think that this group would like to see something moving forward, and it would be my recommendation that council, and Jason, I don't mean to give you more work because I know how busy you are, but direct the city attorney to start looking at what that process is to prepare it for the upcoming election, what the deadlines are, what we have to do, and what the process is to get that put onto the ballot, and then look at some potential ballot language that we can consider if we do put it on the ballot, because ultimately, if council decides to put this on the ballot, they're going to have to come up with the language of what that charter change will be. Now, while we're at it, there are a couple of other things that we would like the council to consider to put on the ballot if we go this direction. The first one is a charter change with regards to the limitations we have on our procurement policy. The charter was adopted in 1914, upgraded in 2007. There's still some archaic aspects to the charter that need to be adjusted. For example, on the very last page, there's criminal liability for anybody who violates the charter, and I think we're a little more civil than that these days. It's not the Wild West, and we don't need to be throwing people in jail. That just creates a lot of problems. Anyway, so, but the one that has to do with procurement is that there was a limitation set, and as far back as I've researched it, it was set sometime between 1940, or 1914 and 1930. So we're looking at, 100 years or more, of $10,000 being the most that the city could spend without requiring formal bids and approval by council. What this has done is created a lot of inefficiencies in staff in how we procure things. It's amazing what costs $10,000. Tires for a new tractor, new front-end loader could be $10,000. Outfitting a new police vehicle can be up to $10,000. Things that we do on a regular basis and are part of what we do on an everyday operation exceeds $10,000. And the whole purpose of that is so that council understands where the money's being spent, and that staff doesn't go out and spend $1 million on something and come back and say, oh, by the way, we spent $1 million. And we have the budget process. So ultimately, what we want to do is change the charter to give council the ability to set that amount by ordinance over time. If we were a statutory city and not a home rule city with a charter, we'd be subject to the state statutes, which gives even small communities up to $50,000. $49,999 is what they can spend without going through a formal approval process of council for something that is outside the budget or something on a capital basis. And I know Jared does a lot of these, and I see him over there kind of smiling. Man, this wouldn't be too bad. But I will tell you, we did meet with all of our managers in our monthly managers meeting and discuss this, and they said it would be a huge relief of a burden that they have to try and spend the money in their budget regularly, because we go out to bid for anything over $10,000. And that's even when it is any item, whether it has to come in front of council or not. And so we would like you not necessarily to change it to what the statute is, but at least give council the authorization to set that number and have public input on that number. And I know I was talking to somebody, or there was some conversation earlier that Fort Collins is struggling with the $50,000 mark and are looking to go above and beyond that. And so that's the second thing. And before I move on to the third thing, Jared, what do you think? Is that a good idea, or?
I would definitely support that. Having done several bid processes in the last 10 years, it does slow things down. We have a tight enough budget that we already essentially have it on paper as to what we can spend. It's just an additional process, typically with minimum 2 weeks of advertising, speaking to bidders and everything. The end result ends up always being the same, and it's almost like more than anything, it's a formality. And I guess another flip side of that is I don't know how much time you guys really dig into how much money we spend over $10,000. If we purchase a car, it's, okay, that's a pretty common process. As Jeff said, equipping just a law enforcement vehicle, we are touching almost $10,000 for equipping. 10 years ago, it cost us about $6,500. It's increased immensely, but it's the exact same amount of work. So I definitely would support something like that.
And I think that's what you'd hear from pretty much all the managers and superintendents. So thank you, Jared. I appreciate you chiming in. Now, the last one is, we have
A field.
a field known as Legion Field. It's a public park. We currently have an agreement with the school district that uses it in exchange for maintenance for their high school activities. And one of the things that we've been working on with the district is how do we, is it in the interest of the city and the community to transfer that over to the school district long-term, which benefits the taxpayers from a school district facility perspective, but also benefits the school district taxpayers as well, with regard to facilities that they need to operate baseball, as well as, have parking for football, because all they have is a football stadium with no parking at this point. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So that was something that we talked about with council. It's something that we want to put on, we have to put it on the ballot to see if the citizens would like to change the ownership of that park from us to the school district. And I know that some of the questions that we're going to get from the public, we're already getting, is what public access will anybody have to that property once it's transferred over? So we need to be prepared, and the school district probably needs to be prepared for how we're going to do that. One of the things is there's going to be a cost to putting this on the ballot, and if council wants to move forward, obviously I'll probably reach out to the school district and say, hey, are you willing to pay that proportionate cost to put this on the ballot to have that go out to the citizens for that approval. The school district's done a really good job, I think, in making some improvements out there, and I know that they're using it. And there may be some other legal issues that we have to look at. I don't know, Jason, if you had something you wanted to.
I had an issue 4, but
Yeah. But,
a
what's the
different-
4th issue, Jason? I'm done with that. Well, unless council, if there's anything, well, we'll get to the done, and then we'll get done with 4. Go ahead, throw 4 in there, and then we'll.
just another potential item to consider as we look at the option of going to self-collect for our tax. One of the large movements going across the state for self-collecting jurisdictions is to adopt standard definitions, which makes it a lot easier on businesses who are collecting these taxes to have, especially in multiple locations, to have those definitions as to what is taxable, what's not, what type of entities are required to collect tax, et cetera, being consistent. So that's another potential option. Right now, we're tied to the state definitions for tax, and we don't those aren't necessarily user-friendly, to say the least.
And they reference the 1973 Colorado Revised Statute as amended, so they've been in place for a while. So that may be an option. So starting with the beginning issue, having a meeting, doing more Polco, and having Jason move forward with at least putting together some of the aspects and research on what it's going to take to put this on to the ballot. Is there anything you want us to be doing different after our meeting last week?
I think that kind of sets the pace, and I think having Tammy Tenoy come and speak at that meeting, have the community, and that, I think that will bring it all together.
And when do you want to do that again?
It would be May 29th.
Night.
May 29th at 6 p.m.,
It's the 5th Tuesday.
5th Tuesday. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was wondering the time.
Oh, 6, oh, sorry.
Oh.
You've got that.
Got the
We're planning on 6 o'clock. is
You
what
think
we're
this
gonna do.
room will be big enough?
Well, it's a start. If it ends up not being big enough, we can change it up and have another one later on. I mean, we can do another one subsequent to that if we need to.
I would, if we need to get a bigger venue, I
Yeah.
think we can get it done in one shot.
Well, and I think the benefit for doing it here is we can televise it after the fact, and maybe that's kind of the benefit, is just because we have a public forum doesn't mean that the public conversation has to end. I mean, they can still go to Polco, they can still go and call their council members, send emails to city clerk, write letters to the editor, whatever it is they want to do to get their voice out into the public on this issue. I think the whole point of the forum is to get that started and give council some feedback on what direction you want to go. Do you want to have the proponents of this go out and get signatures because you just don't feel like it's supported well enough? Or do you want to go ahead and put it on the ballot because there seems to be enough support that we might as well let the citizens kind of decide what direction they want to go? But if you want to have it somewhere else,
No, I'm
we're
just
always-
talking about
Yeah.
size-wise, just thinking about the ones that showed up at that
Mm-hmm.
last meeting.
Well,
That was my only thought,
well, I have a reserved seat.
as do we.
And everybody up here does. There's a limit of 99 people to be in here, and so I think, you
99 people gets pretty warm.
yeah.
Is that what that says back there? Or
So hope it's windy that day.
occupancy?
Yeah, 99 is the maximum in here. So we would obviously have to limit the number of people if all of a sudden came in and we had people on the stairs and everything else. But there's also a possibility that if it gets that big, and I'll talk to Nelson if we could use technology, because I know that we put this out on YouTube, and right now we're out on the internet with a short time delay with this presentation tonight. And I guess we could look at having some sort of a chat place where people may kick in information or comments or something that can become part of the record for that. I think we want to, give people every opportunity to be involved with this, because again, I think we want to be transparent and open with what the process is and what's going on.
I just brought it
Yeah,
up as
sorry.
a suggestion.
Nelson's back there sweating right now.
gone.
Sorry.
Chatting? What is he bringing that up for?
Okay.
So
Good with that.
everybody good with that process? Okay, now the second one is, would you be good with us having Jason put some language together also when he's doing this for amending the charter to allow council to set the limits that's required to do bidding?
I think we need to
Yes.
get in front of all of this, so, I mean.
Okay, so everybody's kind of
And these will all be individual ballot issues.
separate items. So you vote for one, you vote for another, you vote for another. So if you want the school district to have Legion Field, but you don't want to have uniform definitions for taxes, then you would, vote accordingly.
Simple wording. As much as that is possible when you're talking about legal.
With the exception of the sales tax one, none of these are Tabor issues, so it should be a little bit more flexible. We don't have specific language we have to put in.
At least we're good at this. We've already been down this road once. We know how to do this.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Oh, sure.
No, we already did that one. Next is consent agenda by resolution. Mr. Brennan?
Thank you, Your Honor. Tonight's consent agenda includes item A, approval of the disbursements and payroll for March, and item B, approval of the minutes of the April 3rd, 2018 City Council special meeting. All matters on the consent agenda are considered routine business by the council and will be enacted with a single motion and a single vote by roll call. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is deemed necessary, that item should be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately.
I would entertain a resolution.
Your offer a resolution to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Who was the second? Clint?
Kevin.
I have a resolution by Allison Howe and second by Kevin Lendl. By roll call.
That resolution carries unanimously.
Next is public comment and audience participation for no items not on the agenda. Do we have a new newspaper? Okay,
Come through.
come up for it.
Zach Schmidt. So
You got to go all the way to the mic, though, because we have the viewing public. They want to see your smiling face.
Yep, I'm Zach Schwint, so I'm a new reporter for the Fort Morgan Times. I've been there for about a month and a half. So, yeah, maybe I'll be the one who's coming in here from now on.
Good deal.
So-
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you
Welcome,
too.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Reports by officials and staff.
Thank you, Your Honor. We've got a lot to report on, but we want to make sure that you have plenty of time to grill Jason tonight. I'm just kidding. First of all, I want to thank our employees. You know, we've been making the rounds and visiting all the different departments, and there's a theme that I think you've seen and you'll continue to see as it relates to our employees in each individual department. They're all very different. They all do very different jobs. They, you know, all have different things to contribute, but one common theme that you'll see is they're very proud of what they do for the city. Every department is very proud of what they provide and what they do for our citizens, and I think that's a commonality that it transcends the silos that sometimes come up within an organization, and I'm really grateful for all of our employees and their dedication to making their department the best it can be. With that, since I'm kind of on a love fest tonight, I want to thank John Brennan. A lot of you don't really see all the things that John Brennan does behind the scenes to make everything come off as well as it does. These meetings, the minutes, the agendas, he makes sure that we have what we need and make sure council has what they need. And really want to thank him for being a good example and of what dedicated employee is for the city of Fort Morgan. So, quick report on sales tax. We're starting to see the sales tax come in, like I said before, on the streets. You've got that in your packet tonight. We've seen that uptick, and it's kind of where we want it to be, and hopefully it continues to go up. It'll be interesting to see year over year in the next 2 or 3 years how that fluctuates and goes up or down. And then, I know there's got a lot of good positive feedback and comments from people, some of our volunteer firefighters. Really grateful to those from council who came to their banquet, I think it was last Tuesday. And again, want to thank them for what they do. They do an excellent job for public safety. Today it sounded like they were pretty busy with things happening with the windstorm, and you know, our electric guys were out, all of our guys were out, making sure that people are safe and things were taken care of. So overall report about the city's people are doing a really good job to try and keep things moving forward. So did anybody else have any other announcements that they needed to make? Okay, thank you.
I would just ditto what you said. Police department, fire department, city staff do a phenomenal job, and the citizens are lucky to have the employees that we do have.
Mm-hmm.
I know as council, we appreciate them.
Yeah.
Okay, bids, meetings, and announcements.
Thank you, Your Honor. There's only one bid out right now for fiber optic service terminals and materials, excuse me, until 2:45 PM on April 24th. Under meetings, the Heritage Foundation will meet April 26th at 4 PM at the Museum Community Room, and the next City Council regular meeting will be May 1st at 6 PM, preceded by a council tour at 4:15. That'll be the streets, sanitation, and building maintenance departments and city hall offices. Under announcements, Jeff mentioned earlier that I would talk about Polco, and then he didn't let me talk about
Oh, my goodness, you're right.
But he did tell you we're doing a good job, though.
So, yes, so now I'm going to talk about Polco.
Thanks, John.
We launched it on Monday, and we want everybody possible to get involved in Polco. It is a really easy, from both sides, from the admin side and the user side, very easy, simple, kind of public input, community engagement tool. All you have to do is go to polco, POLCO.US /Fort-Morgan. and then you can sign up for an account. It's obviously free, it's confidential. The only information they need is your name, your zip code, and your email address. The zip code will basically be used to verify if you're a registered voter in the city of Fort Morgan. You don't have to be to participate, and we encourage people from all over the world to participate and chime in on our issues, but we will be able to tell the answers that are coming from registered voters in the city versus non-registered voters.
China.
We just launched it on Monday, so a little over 24 hours. We've got about 40 people on there already, and answering the questions which have to do with this charter change proposal at this point. A couple of comments. Most of the questions allow for the opportunity to comment, and in certain cases, you can put background information or historical information, just maps, anything that will help people understand the issue we're asking them about. So the news release with that URL address is on the city website, and we encourage everybody to go on there. I'm sure you could just go to polco.us and look for Fort Morgan and get on there that way too. I've tried to see what it looks like to the user, but it already knows me, and I haven't tried it from another computer, so.
I'll try it if I can get on. It should be really easy.
Okay, that would work.
Well, and it's nice too, once you've answered the questions, it gives you results back. So you have instantaneous results as to how the poll's going, up to that point. So that was kind of,
Yeah, and I
Interesting.
think you can see the comments as well, and
I didn't try that.
Is it just you put out a subject that you're wanting, or is it just open? They can comment on?
no, it's questions that we put out. and
Okay.
They recommend between 3 and 5 questions in kind of a batch on a single issue. And there can also be just some kind of temperature-taking questions, is the city moving in the right direction? What would you like to see the city do? Kind of open-ended ones. But for the time being, the first batch focused on this charter change thing. And based on the comments, we may do more, the survey results and the comments, we may do a few more questions on that. But we'll be using, and that's the importance of the email address, is you'll be notified when new questions are posted. And there will be a link, I think, in there to just go right in there and answer them. And that's what we hope people do. They get into it and kind of get used to doing it. And
We've got more questions.
I think it will be a great new tool for getting community opinion.
Can I add also that it is mobile friendly? There's an app, and it is easy to use.
I think you already have.
You just did.
And you can log in with your Facebook account even, so it's very simplistic.
I guess the whole point is we really, really want to hear back from the citizens. And we want transparency in government. We want the citizens to know what's going on and what we're doing. And I think this is just one more tool. And I want to thank John again because he did a lot of work to get it set up. So.
Good job, John.
Thanks, John. You're the unsung hero.
No, he was sung.
Tonight we're singing for him.
We're singing about it.
Okay.
It was a love fest. That's right.
Next on the agenda is an executive session for discussion of a personnel matter under CRS Section 24-6-4024F, not involving any specific employee who have requested discussion of the matter in open session, any member of this body or an elected official, the appointment of any person to fill an office of this body or an elected official, no personnel policies that do not require the discussion of matters personal to particular employees in the following for additional identification purposes, to do a performance appraisal of the city attorney. I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. We will adjourn to executive session.
don't know who made